What's up, Sooner Nation, and welcome to another edition of the WhackoWeekly Podcast, where we go over all things OU football from this previous week. My name is Steve Curtis. I'm the voice behind WhackoSooners, and this may be one of my favorite WhackoWeeklies ever because our beloved walk-on, Mr. Owen Heinecke, has won his preliminary injunction against the NCAA. I was there from kickoff at 8:30 this morning all the way until the decision was announced around 3:30 this afternoon. Had a chance to catch up with Owen, his representatives afterwards. It was just overall a great day and experience. It was a blast. I had more fun than I thought I would. I thought I was going to be bored sitting in a courtroom all day. But no, I was on the edge. I was on the edge of my seat all dang day. Now, of course, I'm here to give you a rundown of everything that I heard today. We're going to break it all down right here on WhackoSooners, from case details, what it means for OU moving forward, what it could mean for college football moving forward as well. We'll touch on that a little bit. But if this is your first time joining us here in the Wacko Loop, welcome. All right, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell button so you never miss a thing. Plus, you can follow us on our Substack as well as our socials, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at WhackoSooners for more live news updates, game highlights, and of course some memes to keep it lighthearted and fun like we like it here in Sooner Nation. But go hit those follows, go hit those subs. We're doing a lot more on our Substack blog page, a lot of written content there lately. So go check all of that stuff out so you're always in the Wacko Loop. We would love to have you a part of this Wacko Loop family. So I guess, since this is all about Owen Heinecke, I guess we can just, jump right in. In short, Judge Thad Balkman granted his preliminary injunction. He's free to return to the Sooners in the 2026 season. It's about dang time, honestly, because we started thinking about this back in December, right after we lost to Alabama in the playoffs. And throughout this whole nearly 5-month process, I guess, 4 months, I guess. As of Sunday, it will have been 4 months. But we've seen Owen fight his way through this whole thing with a lot of grace, a lot of maturity, nothing but respect. We've been posting a lot on WhackoSooners, maybe a little bit of heat to the NCAA, but Owen never once goes after the NCAA. It's just the way the world is. He understands that, has always understood that, and he just does a really good job of carrying it like any young man should, according to the Brent Venables way that he's been coached to live by the last several years. But let's go, dude. All right, we got Owen Heinecke back. That makes me feel a lot better about the linebacker core in general, which we'll talk about here a little bit later. But right now, we can just kind of talk about the proceedings in general. I was there bright and early. As I said, I was there for kickoff at 8:30 this morning. Recording this here on Thursday night. It'll be coming out tomorrow, Friday morning. But sat through the whole thing, had a great time. Gave me a chance to get better acquainted with Owen's case, because granted, I did read a lot of the briefings beforehand, trying to get a grasp on what everyone was going to be arguing. And while I do have a former lawyer and current law student in my family, I still don't understand a lot of the legal jargon. I don't understand legal vocabulary and grammar. So it was great for me to be in the courtroom and think of it as if I was in class of some kind, because they were discussing it fairly conversationally with the occasional big legal word in there that I didn't understand in a vacuum, but in the context, it was easy to figure out. Wow, I'm starting to sound really smart here, aren't I? But I was just able to understand it a little bit more easily, and that just made it easier to follow and easier to talk about here with you guys. But anyways, it went about as you'd expect. They started with opening statements. Owen's team then called on their various witnesses. We had Brent Venables. We had JJ Tapana, who is Owen's high school coach. You had Jim Nagy, OU's director of compliance in Brady Newville. And then, of course, Owen himself. Honestly, I think BV, just to start there in terms of the witnesses, Brent Venables, that man was built for the witness stand. I'm going to be brutally honest here. He answered every question as concisely as possible. I was kind of surprised, not in a bad way, because we know Brent does like to go on a tangent from time to time. And when I say time to time, I mean almost any time we get to talk to him. But he tackled this the way that he needed to be as professional and as productive as possible for Owen's sake. Did a great job of advocating for Owen with what little he did say. When he was under cross-examination, he was asked by the NCAA's leading attorney on this case about the potential irreparable harm that Owen might face should he be forced to go to the NFL and go out through the draft next week. And Brent said, and I quote, "It's the most demanding league on the planet. If you're not ready, your career will be over quickly." He also had some great one-liners in there. I think one of them was, I like to think I have a PhD in 18 to 24-year-olds. And that got a crack out of all of us, as well as talking about where Owen had been on the depth chart when he arrived. And he's like, wherever Owen was on the depth chart, I bet you I was lower. So Brent just did a really good job. Fantastic orator, as we all know. He did a really good job also when it came to pinpointing certain things about Owen's development, and back to that irreparable harm thing and how can Owen be best prepared to move on to the next level. He highlighted the difference between production in a guy's first year starting at a position and then the second year. Owen only started at his position at middle linebacker the last 5 games of the 2025 season. So out of 13 games, he started the last 5. And he was a beast in that back half of the season. Now imagine what you're going to be getting out of that guy in 2026, added on to it a little bit more development. That's going to be a lot of big numbers. BV mentioned the Butkus. Jim Nagy, when he went up, also mentioned the Butkus Award. Every football expert in that room, from Brent to Jim to JJ Tapana to other people that are in there that have been paying attention to OU football far longer than I have, been alive, let alone been paying attention to it. Everyone heard Butkus, and we're thinking about it, and we're like, oh yeah. We were all licking our chops because he's got the capacity. He's that much of a freak athlete. He has the football IQ to understand, and not only understand, but to use the Brent Venables defense as an absolute masterclass of a weapon in order to do it. He's going to be in a position to put up numbers, and he could very well be in the Butkus conversation. So Sooner Nation, keep your eyes peeled for that in 2026. Owen Heinecke could very well be a Butkus Award finalist. He could be in the conversation. He probably won't win it, odds are. But if he does, I wouldn't be surprised. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That could be a lot of fun. Teddy Lehman, another OU Butkus winner. We all love Teddy. We all still listen to and watch the Oklahoma Breakdown with Gabe and Teddy. Come on, Owen, go and get it for us. Now, in terms of production, since we were talking about that here for a second, let's also not forget that Owen was forced to go through NFL draft preparations. He did a lot of extra work this offseason, a lot of extra workouts, basically went to a whole other level of football school to prep for these NFL interviews. You're basically getting an NFL linebacker in that locker room for this upcoming season. And that's going to be huge for the production on defense, as we talked about last week and then wrote about on our Substack as well. Because again, if he's just as good, not better, perfectly equal to what he was in 2025, Owen Heinecke is going to do just fine. He's going to make that run at the butt because he's going to be an absolute stud, and he's going to be commanding the Oklahoma defense in the SEC in 2026. And it's going to be absolutely beautiful. And we will talk about the impact he will have on the rest of the linebacker core a little bit later down the road. But kind of back to Brent, talking about Owen's character, he really went on to highlight how much he believes in Owen, how he's an outstanding young man, most selfless kid he's ever coached. And coming from Brent Venables, and if you know anything about BV, in his 30 years of elite coaching experience and then his own personal experiences before he got into coaching where football saved his life, coming from Brent Venables saying that a man who embodies selflessness and how he coaches, how he raises these young guys in his program over the last 30 years. If BV says that he's the most selfless kid he's ever coached, you know that it is true. It has to be. Because otherwise, what is the world if something Brent Venables says like this, if that's not accurate, then what's going on? What are we doing here in 2026? No. So to me, Owen's character was further reinforced when he himself was on the stand and he was being cross-examined by the NCAA. Now, some context for this. A good chunk of the NCAA's case, in fact, most of it, was centered around the fact that he'd received D1 offers elsewhere coming out of high school at Bishop Kelly up there in Tulsa. He had received D1 football offers. The primary two being Army and Navy, so service academies. And when asked why, when Owen wanted to play football so badly, why didn't he just go to Army or Navy? Why didn't he just go to one of the service academies? And his response was he did not want to commit the extra time after his college years to the armed forces. Now, Owen said it. Other witnesses said it. The NCAA and Owen's own legal reps. Everybody made a point, and I'm going to make a point of it here too. We have so much respect and a special place in our hearts and have so much gratitude for the members of our armed forces here in the United States. So there's no diss or shade on them. Absolutely none. But when you go to these service academies, there's an expectation that the first 8 years after your graduation, you are still committed to the military in some way, shape, or form, whether that's active duty, reserve duty, you name it. Owen did not want to make that commitment. He wanted to go play college football, and he had a dream to keep playing football beyond college. He did not want to make that same commitment to the military after his collegiate years were over. The NCAA then asked him, well, why not just go to the service academy, perform well for a couple of years, transfer somewhere else, and keep football as your primary dream? And Owen's response was, to me at least, fantastic. Maybe not the most practical approach, but to me it told me a lot about who Owen really is. And it was, Owen said, basically, I'm not going to make a commitment that I know I'm going to break later. I'm not going to commit to a military service academy with the expectation that I'm signing up to join the military when I'm done with college, just as a vehicle to get me to where I want to be. I'm not going to use the people at the service academies to get me specifically where I want to go. Is it going to get me where I want to be faster? Sure. But that's not the right thing to do. That's not the kind of man I want to be. And many other kids have done this, okay? There's a linebacker at Georgia right now. I'm going to butcher his name, Elo Modozie, I'm not sure which one. Hasn't played a whole lot in 2025, but he started at Army, spent his first 2 seasons there, transferred to Georgia for the 2025 season, backing out of his military commitment. But Owen's over here saying, I'm not going to do that. In the word, there is no honor was in that. And that, I believe, came from his high school coach, JJ Tapana, who said that is not within Owen's honor code to do that, to commit to do something knowing that he's not going to follow through, knowing that he's going to deliberately break it later down the line. And that is Owen's character right there. And that part of who he is why everyone involved in this, from his coaches to other staff like Jim Nagy, Roger Denny, President Joe Harris made an appearance. All 3 of those guys were there. Or anyone involved with this, Owen's lawyers, everyone. They came together for Owen because of who he is and the kind of young man he is. We caught up with his legal reps after the hearing was over and Judge Bachman had delivered his decision. And Mary Quinn Cooper, the lead attorney on this case, she made a point. If you go watch it on our YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, you will see one of the first things she talks about is how great of a kid Owen is. And how when he's talking to the media, he always says the right thing. And she was initially thinking like, he can't be all that great. There's got to be at least something wrong with him. No, she hasn't found anything wrong. And you get to know your lawyers really dang well. Lawyers, coaches, fans, media members, everyone, even the NCAA attorney was hyping Owen up. Like, he's an incredible young man. This isn't personal. Like, they actually had a very nice conversation in the recess between closing statements and Judge Bachman delivering his decision, Owen and the NCAA's head attorney. I forget his name, unfortunately, and I haven't been able to find it to remember it. But the moral of the story is Owen's a dang good kid. I say kid, he's older than I am, but he's a dang good dude. And the praise did not stop with Venables. It didn't stop with Mary Quinn Cooper or his other attorneys or the opposing counsel or anybody else. His head coach from high school, J.J. Tapana, of course, made a point, because a big portion of Owen's case was how it related to COVID impacting his recruitment out of high school into college. So obviously had to deal with that, but J.J. Tapana made a point that during Owen's senior season, with all the COVID restrictions and regulations, in order to get Owen in front of coaches, Tapana was fighting his tail end off. He was calling people, he was texting people, hey, this kid's great, you got to come take a look at him. Because remember, a big part of college football recruitment is you need to go see these kids. You need to get a good look at them, see their size, their build, and kind of get this better idea on who these guys are. And not just as a physical athlete, but as a person, their character. Like we just talked about with Owen, how he's a man of high character, would not manipulate the service academies to meet his ends of playing D1 football at an incredibly high level. So Tapana made a point, like, when these guys get here, when these recruiters got to Bishop Kelly and were going to see Owen, they were going to see exactly what they were going to get. They would know exactly where he would fit into their locker room, into their program, because when you're building a program, you need to think not just about the kind of athlete you're getting, you need to think about the kind of person you're getting. That's something that Brent Venables has done really well in his almost 5 years at Oklahoma. We'll say 4.5 right now. He's done a good job of finding great athletes, great physical talent, but also great young men that elevate the locker room, elevate each other. And Owen is a poster child for that. And I'll probably use the word poster child a lot more throughout the evening, because that's literally what he is. He's a poster child for great locker room culture, great work ethic, great integrity, great maturity. But anyways, enough about Owen's character references, because I could go on forever about that. But as for some of the specific courtroom shenanigans, there were three big takeaways that I took from this. And it was pretty much from where Owen's representatives were coming from, the points they were making. So first and foremost, the first big point that they were using was COVID impacted Owen's college recruitment from high school. Just talked about that a little bit. We can get into it a little bit more. Then number two, because of that, Owen didn't have any viable D1 options. And third, and these all kind of tie together, and I'll dive into that in a second as well. I get very scatterbrained here because it's just so much. But the NCAA was cherry picking on this particular eligibility issue instead of dealing with all athletes per their own mission and bylaws, fairly, equally, and acting in the best interest of the athletes under the totality of their individual circumstances. So the first 2 points on that list, so COVID impacting recruitment and Owen didn't have any D1 options, viable D1 options. Those are the really clear points. And then the third one is just a nice little ribbon that like kind of ties it all together like a pretty bow on a present. The present being Owen's giant W today. But not in short, because this is going to take a minute, but initially, Owen's requesting an additional year of eligibility because he was not afforded the traditional recruiting opportunities that most high school football recruits get coming out of high school, right? Because of the restrictions of COVID. Because, again, recruiters are not coming to campuses. They're not seeing kids. They're not seeing kids that are new to them. And they're not hosting camps anyway. So even if you are new to them, you're not going to be able to get in front of them and show off. No way. Now, the NCAA was refusing to acknowledge that the COVID recruitment restrictions were the main cause for Owen deciding to go to Ohio State for lacrosse that first year, 2021 to 2022. And that's nuts to me, because if, according to the head coach at Bishop Kelly High, J.J. Tapana, who's been there for 20 plus years, if you are the best football player to come in and out of Bishop Kelly High School's doors, if recruiting was normal, yeah, you would have been recruited like crazy. He probably would have been a top recruit in the state of Oklahoma, and Oklahoma would have been pushing to get him under Lincoln Riley. Because he played running back in high school, and J.J. Tapana even said today, he basically told Jim Nagy, who was sitting in the gallery while Tapana was on the stand, Jim, put him at running back. And then Jim got up there and said, I mean, Tapana's still trying to get him to be a running back. We could have used him last year. Maybe we need to think about this. Lincoln Riley, the offensive psycho, probably would have been like, hey, we could go get us a good running back out of this guy, and probably would have turned out just fine. But enough of that Lincoln Riley tangent. But if you're such a great player at Bishop Kelly, you're going to get recruited, at least by the big two schools in Oklahoma, and then little brother Oklahoma State. You're not just going to be getting walk-on offers. You're going to be courted severely. Now, an important part of this is that Owen did not explode onto the scene until later in his junior year. He was kind of behind someone else, and then he got injured. Owen stepped up, did pretty well. But by that time, a lot of recruiting boards for the class of 2021 were pretty well set, and people weren't looking for their late additions yet. And when they did start looking for those late additions, COVID happened. And so you aren't going out and seeing new kids. You aren't getting them to camps. You aren't bringing them to campus. So you couldn't do all the things that a recruiter would need to do to pursue a late recruit, a late bloomer, which Owen Heinecke was. And Jim Nagy did a really good job of explaining this, talking about scouts. We look for the physical traits that the staff wants, who they are off the field, how they are in the classroom. Because again, you're not just recruiting a racehorse to go trot out to the track once a week. You're recruiting a young man whose behavior is going to have an impact on your locker room, and you need someone that's going to fit the culture. And college scouts couldn't do any of that for Owen's recruiting cycle because they couldn't come see him the fall of his senior year, and they couldn't host him on campuses for camps. And even when they were holding camps in the spring and summer of 2021, when he was graduating high school, dude was injured. He had a labrum injury to close out his senior year of high school, immediately had shoulder reconstruction. From what I heard in court, he was not discharged from the doctor's care until June, midway through the summer, during official visit season, or traditional visit season anyways, and could not participate in tackle sports. He was released from the doctor, but they told him, don't participate in contact sports for at least several more months. He went to Ohio State for lacrosse because that's all he could do, because he'd not, been afforded the initial opportunities, and when there were some opportunities that he could try to take advantage of, he couldn't make it because of injury. And the only reason he wasn't afforded that opportunity was because of the lack of camps during 2020, his junior to senior summer. And then, of course, he gets to Ohio State, has the whole lacrosse thing, and we know where we are now. And when it comes to the medical thing, the NCAA made a big point today discussing you need 2 excusable absences or 2 excusable denials of competition in order to be given an extra one. He has one from 2022 for his first year at Oklahoma on the football squad with his knee injury where he sat out the entire year. But then they started using the whole, oh, well, that kind of counts, I guess, in the fall of 2021 because you were injured, but you didn't provide any medical records to corroborate that claim or anything. And then Mary Quinn Cooper, Owen's lead counsel, she jumps right up with a giant grin on her face, pulls up a giant slide on the screen that literally says, we, Owen's representation, sent 171 pages of medical records to the NCAA in his initial petition back in January. Or December. No, it was filed in late December. They sent 171 pages of medical records back in December. And here the NCAA said today, April 16th, that there were no medical records to corroborate it. When they had gotten the medical records and they just didn't care. Like, Mary Quinn Cooper looked at them like, don't play dumb, you idiot. No, you had the medical records you needed. Stop talking like, no. She was not having it, and I was incredibly entertained. Now, and the other crazy thing here, and this is where point 3 comes in terms of the NCAA was not living by their own bylaws of, fair treatment, best interest of the athletes. In Owen's case that they filed back in December, they cited 3 specific NCAA bylaws as the foundation for their entire case. Now, I wrote down, when I was in court, I wrote down those bylaws. I do not have them with me right now because unfortunately my notes decided to hide for a moment. But in short, Owen's team used 3 specific bylaws to cite in their case. Then they went on and discussed a similar case in which a young woman who played volleyball elsewhere for the beginning of her collegiate career moved over to basketball and filed in November of 2025, so a month before Owen filed his, that she wanted an extra year of eligibility to continue her basketball career because she'd started by playing volleyball but really wanted to play basketball. The NCAA, I believe, passed a decision on this roughly a week ago, confirming her ability to get an extra year of eligibility. But there is no record of this internal decision within the NCAA's own databases. So this was an internal decision made in-house, but there's no record in the house of the decision being made. And we'll get to that in a minute. But here's the absolutely crazy part. This girl in this case cited the exact same 3 bylaws in her own case that Owen Heinecke's squad used in his. The exact same 3. It wasn't she used 4, he used 3. She used 3, he used 3. They were the same ones. And yet Owen got denied back in January, and hers was passed a week ago. OU's Director of Compliance, Brady Newville, took the stand, and when asked about that, he said, I checked their database this morning, that decision is still not in there. And he was asked, why do you think they would do that? Why would you think it's not in their database? And he's like, it suspiciously looks to me like the NCAA decided to grant this girl her extra season of eligibility, but didn't want it to become a bigger precedent setter for other people to go use it for their own cases to open up more eligibility. Funny, because that didn't work because Owen's crew went out and found it and used it. And Judge Balkman, when he delivered his decision at the end of the day, he even said it. He's like, the NCAA didn't operate in good faith because they went and basically hid precedent. They did not present it, especially since they established it for themselves on the issue within house of the NCAA. And they need to go and make tighter bylaws so that this precedent that he set today by granting Owen his injunction doesn't open the floodgates. Because the NCAA is just an absolute, pardon my French, shit show. It's an absolute mess. Just terrible. Balkman doesn't like the idea of this being a massive floodgate opener. He doesn't want this decision to be a Pandora's box. So the NCAA needs to go figure their stuff out. But what made me laugh so hard at the end of the day was that the NCAA screwed themselves here so badly because they didn't present this precedent. They didn't bother to look at the medical records or remember that they had them. They screwed themselves all over the place. They just seemed lazy to me all day because they were getting their butts cooked. They didn't even bring in any of their own witnesses. Because if you have a witness being asked, so why is this record not in your database? Or why do you not recognize that we sent over 171 pages of medical records? Or when JJ Tapana, Owen's high school coach, made a statement a couple weeks ago about Owen Heinecke's eligibility, why did no one from the NCAA contact him to further discuss it and gather more evidence for their own case? That was a big question that we kept hearing from the NCAA's lawyers was, any of the things that you've testified to here today, did you submit any of that in Owen Heinecke's initial appeal? Or the initial petition? No. Okay. But then the NCAA still should have gone out and asked them about it and done their own investigation. They didn't do squat. So what it looks like to me is that the NCAA made a precedent back a week ago over this whole, I believe it was the Leidy case, this girl with the volleyball to basketball transfer and an extra year of eligibility and all that jazz. The NCAA decided to not stick to their own precedent, particularly in the case of Owen Heinecke. My biggest question is why? Why does it seem that the entire sports world, the entire institutions, and all the institutions across college sports, why do they hate Oklahoma football so much? Because you go to Vegas last year in 2025, they gave Oklahoma a 6.5 win total. Oklahoma goes and wins 10 games. They're giving Oklahoma a 7.5 win total now. The whole Owen eligibility inconsistency thing, when you look at other cases, the guy at Montana with 9 years, Muhammad Tour at Miami getting his 8th due to injury considerations, when Owen should have had some injury considerations. This girl with the volleyball and basketball situation, identical situations. The only difference between her situation and Owen's was that the sports being mentioned were different. And that Owen's a male and she is a female at this moment in time. And we're not going to go and get down that rabbit hole of the cross or transitioning across genders in sports. But the only difference between them right now is one was male, one was female, and then they were across different sports. But other than that, situations were identical or pretty dang close to it. And then the other conspiracy theory factor here is schedule difficulty between OU and Texas going into the SEC. Because in their first 3 years, 24, 25, and now into 26, OU has had the objectively tougher schedule all 3 of those years. Remove how good OU is going to be or ends up being, or how good Texas is going to be or ends up being. Objectively, looking at the schedule, pretend OU and Texas are equal. You look at their schedules, OU's had the tougher one every single time. 2025, they had the toughest schedule in college football. And they went 10-2 to the playoffs. They did better than Texas did, despite them having Arch Manning, some of the best wide receivers in college football, one of the best defenses in college football. Arch Manning, the preseason Heisman savior. And OU, against that tougher schedule, with no run game, averaging 3.5 yards a carry. Texas averaged, I think, about 4.2. So Texas's rushing game was better. But with a tougher schedule, a worse run game, and a quarterback with a broken thumb on his throwing hand, Oklahoma wins 10 regular season games, bounces back from 2 crushing losses mid-season, goes on a run in November, and competes in their college football playoff matchup. And yet the whole world is saying Oklahoma is still crap. Doesn't make sense to me. Because this offense is going to be better in 2026. The defense may be a bit of a step back. But I think it'll balance out. And yet the whole world is saying, oh, they're still going to be terrible. I don't know what to say to that. Other than I think you're nuts. Because I predicted OU to go 9-3 in 2026. And they went 2025, and they went 10-2. I remember looking at one of my buddies, and he saw my SEC predictions where I had Oklahoma finishing 9-3 and Texas finishing 8-4, and he said, "You really think that Oklahoma's going to have a better record than Texas at the end of the regular season?" And I said, "Yes." And I was freaking right. So, now, the part that I most enjoyed about this, just from a not a humorous standpoint, not a part that I laughed at, but just really enjoyed it and it warmed me up, was when Owen talked about why he wants to stay at Oklahoma and what it means to him and all of that. Now, I'm assuming by now, or at least I'm hoping by now, that everyone is familiar with Owen's quote from the post-game presser after the playoff loss to Alabama back in December, where he made it abundantly clear it is not about the money. And Owen's whole legal crew today really pulled at your heartstrings with a slideshow of Owen as a little kid, a bunch of photos of Owen as a kid. And you can see from that, Oklahoma fan born and bred, he is Sooner born, Sooner bred, and will be Sooner dead. He was raised in Houston where he played for the Houston Sooners. They had OU on their helmets. They had Sooners on the jerseys. That was his elementary school team, surrounded by A&M fans. His Christmas presents growing up were going to OU football games. They had photos of him with Barry Switzer when he was little, on midfield when he was little, or at the Fiesta Bowl way back in the day when OU played Iowa. He has wanted to be a part of Oklahoma as long as he's been able to want anything. And again, it's not about the money, because remember, he's a former walk-on. He's gotten about as little financial compensation from the university as is possible in his situation. Now, is that probably going to change for 2026? Probably. A key piece of your defense like that, your starting middle linebacker, yeah, you're going to make it worth his while, absolutely. But he could go to the draft next week and be a late third, fourth, maybe early fifth round pick and make more money in the NFL right now than he will be making at Oklahoma. Or would be, I should say. Because from what I've been given to understand, OU will match it pretty dang close. But if he got drafted incredibly highly, on the high end of that spectrum, round 3, 4, 5, he's going to make more money in the NFL than he will at Oklahoma. And he wants to come back. He said today, basically, I want to cement a legacy at Oklahoma. I want my name in the Sooner book. And he said specifically, I don't want to say I want to be a Sooner legend, but this guy wants to be a Sooner freaking legend. All right? He wants to be a Sooner legend because he loves the University of Oklahoma. Meanwhile, you look at other guys across college football, like Trinidad Chambliss. Trinidad, if he went to the NFL draft next week, would take a giant pay cut from what he's making at Ole Miss. So he chose to go back to Ole Miss for another year. Was a little shady doing it. I had tonsillitis for a couple of weeks. I couldn't play to the best of my ability. Oh, yeah, I'll sign some merch for the judge. Oh, yeah, we'll be buddies. And again, Owen Heinecke would be getting a pay increase if he went to the NFL right now. He wants to come back because he loves the university. He loves the state. He loves the people. He loves his coaches. He loves his team. Now, my family, and we are going to talk about me a little bit here because I love this part of the hearing so much. My family has been in Oklahoma for over 100 years. We love OU. We love the Crimson and Cream. We love the dang red dirt, okay? And hearing someone else speak and think and feel the same way about Oklahoma and OU as I do just really warmed my heart. Because that's why I love Oklahoma, right? The people that come together around it. Because Oklahomans overall are the best group of people that I've spent my time with. I've been lucky enough to live in many places, okay? I've had the opportunity to travel. I've lived in Texas, Oklahoma, Florida. I've gone all over Europe. I've gone to Asia. I've been all over the place for a kid my age. And Oklahomans are without a doubt the best passel of people that there are out there. That is Sooner Nation. It is a giant family. And that is what Owen loves about OU, because it's a family affair for him. Because remember, his uncle played defensive end for Brent Venables and Bob Stoops back in, I believe he said, 1999 to 2002. Sooner Nation means something. Now, I will say this. This whole eligibility battle might not be completely over yet. Owen just won the preliminary injunction in county court in Cleveland County, Oklahoma. The NCAA can and very well might escalate it to the state Supreme Court, like they did with Trinidad Chambliss, to the Mississippi State Supreme Court, where they were denied. We don't know exactly what they're going to do yet, but we will find out before too long what they're going to do, because they have 30 days, I believe, to further appeal it. So we will know by mid to late May what the NCAA intends to do. And then we will go from there. But anyways, the overarching point here is that Owen Heinecke is returning to Oklahoma in 2026, and he took his linebacker skills, pummeled the crap out of the NCAA, laid them out like Brandon Spikes did Noshaw Marino. If y'all know what I'm talking about, if y'all know old SEC ball, or I say old, I was a toddler at the time, so it's old to me. But Owen coming back could not have come at a better time, because as I'm sure by now a lot of us know, Taylor Heim had a pretty severe knee injury earlier this week in practice. He was expected to be your linebacker number 3, your bigger personnel cheetah for bigger personnel packages. But with him out, your top 3 were going to be Kip Lewis, Cole Sullivan, and probably then James Nesta. But now with Owen back in the mix, you've got Owen and Kip at 1 and 2. Cole Sullivan's got the size. He could slide out to cheetah a little bit, help out there with Reggie Powers and Jeremiah Newcomb. And then you've got James Nessa, who can kind of be a depth piece there at inside, and Cole Sullivan can also slide inside as well, depending on what you need. So you should have a solid 4-man rotation this fall. And then throw some of the younger guys in there. Throw in Kristen Moore. Throw in Dane Bathurst. See what those young guys got every once in a while. And I'm okay with the rotation that it's looking like we're going to have this fall, because you're going to have elite veteran presence in both Kip and Owen. And between the two of them, they're going to be a great 1-2 tandem. They're going to be able to teach Cole Sullivan how to take over, Taylor Heim while he's getting better, James Nesta as he's getting a little bit older, and help develop those younger guys up to be a terrifying linebacker core in 2027. So barring injury, further injury, the linebackers at Oklahoma in 2026 will be just fine. Now, we talked last week, as well as over on our Substack, about Owen's contributions so far this offseason in a supplementary role on the sidelines and adding it to the field, and the impact he's going to have in real time during games as well as in practices. These young linebackers are going to get so much value added to their college careers and therefore their professional careers down the line by having another veteran of a Brent Venables system, a fifth-year veteran, having him around for another 8 to 10 months to teach them. And actually on that, hold on, the NCAA, they actually made a very interesting point. If Owen Heinecke comes back, younger guys, they won't have as much of an opportunity to play. They probably don't like the prospect of that. Like, are you saying that there's dissent in the locker room? Because according to Brent Venables, Jim Nagy, and Owen Heinecke, everyone is sitting there saying, yeah, no, we would all love to get Owen back. We can't wait, man. The entire roster has been incredibly supportive throughout the whole process. Mary Quinn Cooper got up and she was like, do you really think you know more about the dynamics in that locker room than the head coach, the general manager, and the starting middle linebacker? Like, do you really think that you're going to be able to project that the players in there are not happy about it when they just told you they are happy? That was just another disorganized flounder moment I saw out of the NCAA legal team today. It was a rough watch at times. But ultimately, all these young guys are relishing the opportunity to learn from Owen Heinecke, because that's the kind of locker room that Brent Venables has built since he arrived in December 2021. When I was a wee senior in high school, and I didn't know what to expect for my freshman year at Oklahoma. But Owen Heinecke, he is an absolute poster child for that locker room culture that Brent has been building since he arrived in Norman as the head coach. And I'm so incredibly proud of Owen and this whole crew for getting everything together and making all this happen. It's been a joy to watch it. It's been a privilege to cover it and be a part of it. It was great to be in court today. I had a blast, met some great people, saw a couple familiar faces as well. It was really great overall just to be able to be a part of that. But that being said, we have the spring game coming up. So by the time y'all are seeing this, spring game is tomorrow at noon at Gaylord Family, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. It's red versus white. I expect to see a lot of great stuff. I have a feeling that we're going to come out pounding the rock immediately. We're going to see a lot out of the young running backs, Jonathan Hatton and Des Walker. Probably a good chunk of Lloyd Avant, maybe some Gabe Sawchuk and Andy Bass as well. I expect we're going to see a lot from our tight ends in the blocking game, and Hayden Hansen, Rocky Beers, and JVD, Jack Van Dorselaer. Some wide receivers as well that I think they're going to pop out for a little bit. You're going to see a lot of Manny Choice. You're going to see a lot of Mackenzie Allain, I think. We still need to check on that. Every day I'm hearing a conflicting and new pronunciation of his last name. And then, of course, you're going to see a lot on the defense as well. You're going to see a lot of Jake Krell, I think, especially early. Just him getting to town, trying to get his stuff going on and get fired up. I think Danny Okoye is going to look really good as well. We might see Owen out there. He's not been taking active participation in practices, but he's been staying fit. He knows the defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see him out there. You'll see Kip doing a good bit as well. We'll get a good look at Cole Sullivan. Some of the newer corners we have in, Prince Ijeoma, Dakota Fields. Yeah, the Oregon transfer, Dakota Fields. Don't expect to see tons of Cortland Guillory or Eli Bowen. See them for a little bit, but not for a really long time. But overall, I think we're going to see a lot of great stuff. A lot of great stuff that I'm really looking forward to it. And we will check back in with you guys next week on the next Wacko Weekly. You know what? We actually might do a Wacko review. We haven't done one of those since December. So we might go ahead and do a Wacko review of the spring game, because that's what we do. We do previews and reviews of games. Now, we aren't able to do a full preview of this spring game, but we you know what? I think we will put out a Wacko review after the spring game for sure. We'll do that. We can do that for you guys. But anyways, that is going to wrap it up for this edition of the Wacko Weekly Podcast, where we go over all things OU football from this previous week. Again, my name is Steve Curtis. I'm the voice behind WhackoSooners. And if you don't want to miss a thing, if you don't want to miss that Wacko review coming up on Monday, if you don't want to miss next week's Wacko Weekly, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button so you never miss a thing. Plus, you can go follow us on our Substack, our blog page. We do a lot of written content over there, as well as all of our socials, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at WhackoSooners for more live news updates, game highlights, and of course some memes, maybe some funny reels to keep it lighthearted and fun like we like it here in Sooner Nation. But go ahead and hit those follows so you are always in the Wacko loop. We would love to have you. But with that being said, guys, happy Owen Heinecke Day. Boomer Sooner.